Hello, everyone. How are you? We are great. We are very great. Many messages resonated in my mind since yesterday because it was outstanding. Today, thank you for joining us. Of course. Today, our first talk is featured by Jaromir Kovarik. Jaromir Kovarik is a researcher. Hi, Jaro, how are you? Jaro is a researcher. He is a associate professor in the economics department of the University of the Basque Country, and he is affiliate of Center for Economic Research and Graduate Education, Economic Institute in Prague, Czech Republic. He is an expert in social norms, social preferences, and of course, social networks. I think our audience is gonna enjoy his talk because organization as networks. Wow, I'm looking forward to hearing you, Yaro. It's your time.
Okay, so thank you for the introduction. So hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. So let me start with my talk. Okay, before I start, I would probably like to warn you that I'm from the academia. Okay, so I'm not very used to work to talk to people who are not from academia, people from firms, from practice. Obviously, this is very useful for us, so it's very important. So if there is anything in the work that is too complicated, please ask questions. Okay, I'll be very happy to explain. Maybe sometimes I assume that you know some things that you don't know, and so on. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about, okay, is again people. Okay, so this is a series of talk about people in firms. I call it organizations to be a little bit more general. Okay, so this is my talk is no different with respect to the others, but I'm going to change a little bit the perspective on how we look at the people in an organization. Okay, that is sort of the idea. Okay, and so what I will talk about is about hierarchies in firms. But we all know that firms have typical what we call formal hierarchies. We have the bosses, people below them, and people below these people, and so on and so on. I will be talking more about informal hierarchies, okay? Something I will call informal networks. To give you a general idea, this is roughly what I'm going to talk about, okay? So what you have here is a sort of a picture of a formal hierarchy in black, okay? There's this boss, there are two people below him, other people below these people, and so on and so on, so till to the lowest levels of the firm. We all know this exists. This is the typical structure, and this is what we call the formal hierarchy of a firm. Okay. What I would like to talk about is what is behind. Okay. Here you have a large number of examples. Some of them are exaggerated, but typically behind the formal hierarchy, we have the whole network of relationships. Okay. Love relationships, hate, friendships. People know each other from outside. Okay, people don't like each other, and so on and so on. Okay, so my talk will be about these informal hierarchies. Okay, why do I care about them? Well, the organization, the formal hierarchies actually abstract from them. They mask relationships that are there. Okay, relationships in networks. Okay, and these relationships go typically well beyond the typical departments, functions, hierarchies of the firm. Okay, people talk to each other away from the optimal the formal hierarchy. So the question is whether this is important for the firm. Okay, so these informal networks. Okay, this will be simply a map of relationships of the employees of a firm, both within and across different divisions, departments. Okay, they typically play a role in the firm because they help to accomplish certain tasks. Okay, people socialize, but also people boycott each other. People sabotage certain things. Okay, these things happen there. Okay, and they are important because they typically channel how many things in the firm gets done, among other things. Okay, and this is very important, especially in larger firms, if in knowledge-intensive companies, and so on and so on. But they are typically ignored, okay, by the formal organization. Okay, so I care about them because they are there, they are important, they are ignored, and they can play a role. Okay, if they are manipulated or intervened, okay, optimally. Okay, they can help firm to improve the functioning. Okay, but how? Well, for example, by talking to the influential people, okay, or by connect people that should be connected, they are not, okay, and so on and so on. So this is an important question for the working of a firm. Okay, just to show you a visual example, what I have here is a real life example. It is the California-based computer company. I will not use typically names because these are typically anonymous real life cases. Okay, what I have on the left is the formal organization. Okay, we have the CEO, leaders who has below him 4 departments. Okay, and I will talk a lot about the department where Calder is the boss. Okay, very simple structure. Well, so what we did, what was done in this firm? So people elicited the network of who asked for advice to who. So what I have on the left is the formal chart. What I have on the right is actually the advice network. So this is what I would like to talk about. Okay, I would like to. So for the moment, I would just like you to have a look and see the difference. The 2 networks, the 2 hierarchies, are very, very different. Okay, what is on the left is engineered. It is a very specific structure. What is on the right is nature. It just arises endogenously in the firm over time. Okay, and you can have a look at the differences. For the moment, there's not much to see. I still didn't explain to you how to read what we have on the right, but I would like you to focus on the difference. The 2 things are very, very different. Okay, and what is important is that people ask for advice. Okay, other people, and this is not reflected in the formal chart. Okay, this is just an example. Okay, so let me start with some general questions. I'll try to reply them briefly before I go to the details. Okay, so this just the difference generates many questions. So first of all, what are these informal networks? Okay, why they exist? Are they good or bad? Okay, should we fight them or should we promote them? Okay, and how they differ from the formal hierarchies. Okay, so these are the things I would like to talk about a little bit in this talk. Okay, I will not be that brief, but let me go through it. Okay, so what are they? They are simple networks that reflect the relationship between different people. Okay, and they are complicated. So we can just use some maps, and this is what I will do later on. Okay, what is important is that these networks can reflect different relationships. Okay, and once again I have an example, and once again let me focus on Calder. Okay, and look at the position of Calder on the left. So this is the advice network. And if you have a look, many people ask Calder for advice. So Calder is very central in this advice network. However, if we ask people who they trust in the firm, you look at Calder again, he's on the left, on the right graph. And Calder is actually very peripheral in the trust networks. So Calder is important for the functioning of people from the technical perspective, while from the trust perspective, he's very peripheral. People don't trust him much. Okay, so this is an important thing. Okay, I can tell you who was Calder. Calder is a very technical, very technically skilled individual. He understood a lot the functioning of the firm, but he wasn't very socially skilled. Okay, and we can see this on this network. So people ask him for technical stuff. People discuss firm functioning with him, but when it comes to trust, people don't talk to him that much. Okay, so these are important things that a manager should know if he wants to know what happens in the firm. Okay, well, what are they? They are these networks, they are there, and what is important is that they are natural. There is nothing we can do about them. Okay, they are very standard social phenomena. Okay, and another important thing that the managers typically believe that they know how they look like. Okay, what the research shows that they are very wrong. And let me once again get back to it. Okay, so what I have on the left is actually the trust network. Okay, and we already saw that no one trusts Calder. Now, what I have on the right is actually how the CEO of the firm views the trust network. And actually, CEO believes that Calder is very important in the trust networks. Okay, I don't have to tell that he was very wrong, right? And in fact, I told you, Calder was actually a very was an individual with not good social skills. And what I have on the bottom actually is how Calder views the trust network in the firm. Okay, very extreme. Actually, Calder believes there is no trust in the firm. He actually believes that there are only two individuals in the firm who trust each other. Okay, not surprisingly, these two individuals are in his division. Okay, so people believe that they know what's going on in their firm behind the formal chart, but typically they don't. Okay, and there is a large research on that showing that this is actually a general tendency. Okay, why they exist? Well, they exist because we are social and emotional animals. That's the only reason. Okay, we talk to each other, we befriend each other, we don't like others. Okay, we need to complain. Okay, we need to talk, and so on and so on. Okay, so it's a very natural. Okay, there's nothing we can do about them. When they appear, mostly, well, typically they strive when there is something wrong about the formal hierarchy. Okay, or when there is something wrong about leadership. So people start to form underlying networks that can solve problems. Okay, and these relationships, these networks, okay, detour the formal hierarchies. Okay, what is important for us, and this is why I talk about them, and I would like you to hear about them, is that actually they can make things work. That's important. Okay, are they good or bad? Well, neither of them. Okay, they can make it work. They can if they have a good structure. Okay, but they can also make the firm stop. They can be the reason of the failure of a firm. Okay, why? Well, there can be many people in influential positions in these underlying networks who can manipulate others. Okay, and the question is whether they manipulate them to work more, to work more for good of the company, or whether they manipulate them to boycott the company, for example. So we should be very well aware of these people who have influence. Okay, who can influence others, who are good networkers. Okay, so because these people are some sort of informal leaders. Okay, so as a firm, we would like to know who these people are. Okay, they are these shadow people behind the function of the firm. Okay, once again, I will insist on that. Look, these networks cannot be abolished. They are there. They will always be there. We cannot prohibit them. Okay, but we can manipulate them. Okay, we can use them. Okay, to benefit the firm. So this is a good news. That's why we care about them. Okay. Well, how they differ from the former hierarchies, and actually you already were able to see that in the previous cases, in the previous graphs. Well, rather than like hierarchies, they look like networks. Okay, this is probably the main difference. The nice thing about them, or maybe the surprising thing about them, is they actually look pretty much as other what we call social networks, meaning a friendships network, even a romance network, or networks of scientific collaborations. So if we want to understand them, we need to use what we call network analysis, and I'll get to that in a second. Okay, these networks can have different properties, and let me skip it, and I'll get to that in a second. Okay, what is important is that these different properties play different roles, and they can stimulate different, and on purpose I put here different behaviors or even misbehaviors. So we have to be careful about how these informal networks look in our organization, in our firm. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about how we describe them. Okay, how we do it, we use what is a field which we call network analysis. Okay, so learning how to map these social links and describe them can actually help managers, owners of firms, okay, and large organizations actually to exploit them. Okay, so this network analysis, what it does is to translate all these bilateral relationships or even multilateral relationships into a map, something I already showed you, and I'll show you more. Okay, and certain properties which we can talk about and which we can manipulate. Okay, typically in firms or in this type of informal firm networks, there are three most important characteristics, important type of relationship: advice networks, trust networks, and communication networks. Okay, these are important. I will not go into the detail. I will actually abstract from this from now on, but just to show you that there is a lot of work on that, and we have a good understanding of what's going on. Okay, but I will abstract from the type of links. I will just talk about networks. Okay, and I will talk about some several examples, case studies or studies that actually show how managers can and do, okay, use these networks in their advantage, okay, in different ways. And I'll get to that in part 4 of this talk. Okay, maybe one practical question if you ask, look, okay, interesting, but how can I how can I elicit these networks? How can I get them? Well, it's not very complicated actually. Okay, typically, the practitioners, researchers, okay, where I will include myself, what we do, we use surveys and we ask people questions like, whom do you talk to every day? Whom do you have lunch with? With whom do you go for help or advice? And these type of questions. Okay, we ask this everybody, and we can just once we have the information from all the firm, we can just generate this map of these bilateral relationships. Okay, and once again, as I talk, I will abstract from the types of links, and I will abstract from these elicitation issues. Okay, so let me assume that we have this network, okay, for some type of relationships, and let me talk about this. So before I get to these case studies, several examples I will talk about, let me give you a very brief, very short background on network analysis. Okay, I will go fast through it. I will not explain. I will not be technical. So if you have questions at the end, please ask me. However, it's very easy to find most of these things I will talk about online by just Googling them out. So let me just give you a very brief crash course on the network. Okay, so what is a network? Well, network is a perspective, simple visual graphical perspective on a system. In our case, group of people in a firm. Okay, where I represent people as points and relationships as lines. Okay, this is a relatively simple thing, something like this. Okay, this is just an example where I have 5 individuals. These dots. Okay, we call them nodes, vertices, agents, people. Okay, and there are relationships among them, which we call edges, arcs, links. I will mostly talk about people, nodes, and links. Okay, this is so I will talk about firm networks. So I will not generalize these things. However, we can present as networks many other things, such as firms, countries, central banks, but also animals, neurons in the brain, and so on, and then map the relationships among them. Okay, using different types of relationships. Just a few examples. What I have here are just what I have on the left is a friendship networks among 300 undergraduates in a university. You can see this is a very complex thing, very complex map, but this is how it looks like. Okay, what I have on the right is, you can imagine these are the same people, students, but the type of link is different. These are romance networks. So you can see that we can have 2 different types of networks among the same people, and they can have somehow different structure. Okay. Other example. These are the relationships among the families in the Renaissance Florence in the 15th century. Okay. I guess that everybody of you heard about Medici, which are the famous ones, but there are other influential families. Once again, we can represent it as a network, and we can talk about the power of these families, or about why Medici were the powerful people in Florence in the 15th century. Other example, relationship between financial institutions. So this is actually the map of the financial institutions before the big financial crisis in 2008. Okay, in fact, you can have a look who are the key players who got bankrupt and so on to understand one of the reasons for why we actually had a big financial crash over a decade ago. Okay, this is a map of scientific collaborations between people, and the most important for us, this is just an example of a firm network. Okay, so firm networks typically have a typical structure. Okay, typically we have departments. Okay, people in the department are densely connected. They form cliques or clusters. And then there are certain relationships among them. Okay. On the left, this is more the theoretical case. On the right, this is just an example from a firm where different colors represent different departments. Okay. So the firm networks typically look like something like this. Okay, so how can we describe it? So there's a lot of things we can talk about there. We can talk about global patterns, about segregation patterns, local patterns, positioning, and so on and so on. So let me go fast through it, okay? And this is a picture I like because it describes a little bit the different things that can coexist in the same network, okay? We can have things like brokerage, so some people broker different departments. Betweenness, people that lie in between departments. Closeness, people within the same department are close to each other. They form closure or cohesion. Okay, we can talk about degree. So some people that have a lot of, that are connected to many people and so on and so on. Okay, well, I will not have much time to go through everything I have here. So let me go through the important things. Typically, we talk about components, which are the disconnected part of the network. Okay, but in firms, typically the components are connected. So typically one firm is one unique component. However, we can have people which we call isolates, people that don't talk to each other. Okay, this is a problem. We want to connect these people to the other members of the firms. Okay, well, let me see some of the things. Then we talk about distances, how fast someone can reach each other people in the network. Okay, so for example here, node A, okay, individual A is distance 1 to individual B, and is distance 2 to individual C. Okay, so network distances, how far I have to go to reach others. And typically we want the distances in a firm to be short. This improves the communication. It increases the cohesion. Okay, we talk about connectivity. Okay, neighborhood. I will talk about the degree. So simply with how many people others communicate, how many people others trust in the network. Okay, very simple idea. We talk about out degree. So people I ask advice to. The idea is, so this is just an example. Okay, I trust J, K, and L. I can talk about in degree who trusts me. So in this case, these two bottom red nodes trusts I. Okay, I can talk about reciprocal degree or simply the total degree. Very simple thing. Okay, so I talk about how many people with how many people I'm connected. Okay, important thing is actually how this degree distribution is distributed in the society. So we can have very homogeneous connectivity or extreme hierarchy in this connectivity. Okay, none of them is actually good in a firm. We typically want to have something in between. However, real life networks are typically very hierarchical. What it means that we have a very hierarchical formal structure, but we also have a very hierarchical informal structures in these underlying informal networks. Okay, this leads us to typical terms, things like hubs, stars, influencers, brokers. Okay, these are important players in the firm networks. Okay, and they exist in these informal networks. We would like to know them and actually use them. Okay, I have several things that I have to skip for timing. It was just idea of showing you. Okay, other important feature of network is cohesion. Okay, we typically use something which we call the clustering coefficient, which is a network measure of triangles, like one I have here on the right in the network. This triangle reflects that we have triples of friends. Okay, it is an example where I is friend of J, J is friend of K, and K is mutually friend. These triangles generates clusters of people who trust each other, who talk to each other a lot. So with the clustering coefficient, we measure the frequency of these people. Okay, so this is just an example, but let me just show you this example. This is an example of a friendship networks, and you can see that there is a lot of these small triangles and even squares in this network. So high clustering, high cohesion is how local cohesion is an important feature of social networks. We need this because these people in these clusters trust each other, coordinate each other very well. We would like the firm networks to have high cohesion. Okay, and the other thing, let me skip this, probably I will go to segregation. Typical feature of the social networks is segregation. Typically similar people are friends to similar people. Okay, very common things in friendship networks. blacks are friends with blacks and whites are friends with X. Okay, it's important. It's also not only happening with race, gender, and so on. It also happens in psychological features of people. So it's important. And crucially, in firm networks, typically people from the same department stick with people in the same department. And this, if this is too extreme, it's bad for the firm because there is not enough cross-departmental trust, communication, cohesion. So this is another feature that is very important things, okay? Once again, let me go. I told you that I probably have too much material, okay? And let me talk about last, positioning. Important issues. We talked about degree and clustering. So degree means that some people are very well connected. Clustering is that some people have dense neighborhoods, dense cohesive neighborhoods. And let me talk about centralities. This is an important thing, okay? Degree is problematic, okay? In this example, you can see two yellow nodes who have the same degree, but clearly the node on the left is more central in the global network than the node on the right. That's why we talk about other global centrality measures. Okay, I'm not going to enter into the detail here. Okay, there is a lot of them. Okay, and they reflect different things. So let me just briefly mention one class of centrality measures is what we call eigenvector centrality measures. Okay, this is a technical term, technical thing, but the idea is very simple. With these centrality measures, people are central if they are connected to important people. Okay, very simple idea. So if I know important people in the network, I'm a central individual. If I'm a good friend of the CEO, independently of where I am, I can influence him, and as a result, I have influence. Okay, I'm not the best example of one. This measure is actually the Google page rank. This is the reason why Google is one of the largest firms on the firm, because they have a measure based on this idea to search through internet. Okay, but this is one centrality measure. This is widely used in applications. Okay, forget about the technical part behind that. It's very easy to compute it with computers and softwares. Just the idea is that I'm influential if I am connected to influential people. Okay, and you can see in this very small example that actually already changes the things. The two yellow nodes now have a very different global centrality if we use this measure. Okay, and some other nodes are more connected, less connected, and so on and so on. Other important centrality measure is being close to others. We call it closeness or reach. Okay, for example, here Medici have an important role because they are close to others, but other families are actually close to others in this family Florence network. Okay, and the large centrality measure, which is important for a brokerage, is what we call betweenness. How important I am if some different people in the network want to reach different people in the network. So this is sort of a measure of intermediation of brokerage of people in the network. Okay, we call it betweenness because I'm in between people. Okay, once again, there is a formula for that, easy to compute with computers. This is actually why the Medici were important in the Florence. They were important mediators. Okay, so here you have a historical example of what's going on. Okay, so different perspectives on how to measure centrality. Degree is a local measure centrality, and which only looks at the neighborhoods, and then we have a global centrality measures reflecting different things. And you have to tell me what you want to measure to tell you who is important. Okay, let me skip the examples. So let me I have roughly 10 minutes. So let me talk to you about several examples showing that this actually matters. Okay, so let me talk about network brokerage. Okay, let me talk about how my position leads to my success at the individual level. Okay, so the idea of brokerage. Okay, at the top here you can see broker. Broker is a very simple idea. Okay, I'm a broker between different people. In networks, it's a little bit more complex than if we talk about standard definition of brokerage. So network brokerage is a little bit more complicated. But the idea is similar. Okay, on the left you can see a broker, someone who creates brokerage between different departments. In complex networks, something we have here on the right, it's a little bit more complex, but still there are people that are more likely to lie in between different groups of people. So let me just talk about this. So remember these firm networks, we have different departments, and some people who talk more than others with people from different departments. These are the brokers. Okay, So why they're important? Well, they're influential. They influence different departments. Okay, they knit together different parts of the network so they can hear information from different departments. Okay, they have a better perspective on what's going on in the whole network because they know more parts of the network. Okay, so if we can talk to these people, we can work with these people, well, it's a great idea, right? We can influence what happens in the firm. However, well, it's not that easy. It's not that easy to find them. Look, these are informal networks, and typically we confuse them with what we call mediators. So some people are consulted a lot, but it doesn't mean they can broker the change. Okay, the other problem of brokers is that they are unstable. Many people want to be brokers. Okay, we have a different idea, which is the structural holes. Actually, some departments are not connected, meaning that there are holes in the network that could be filled by brokers. So this is just the contrary idea, what we call structural hole. So you can think about brokerage as the opposite of structural hole. Okay, the hole is where the broker is missing. However, why is it important? Well, I will talk about a book actually of Ronald Burt, who is the guy who came up with this idea of brokerage networks. Okay, so he has this book where he summarizes the 30 years of his work, of his field work. Okay, he has a large amount of data on firms, about networks in the firms, and who is broker and who is not. Okay, and all this large amount of data, he has several conclusions, which I have actually written here somewhere. What he observes is that the more likely you are a broker, the more likely you are promoted, the higher is your salary, the more likely your ideas are accepted, and so on and so on. Okay. In sum, this 30 years of data collection shows that people that are brokers in their firms are much more successful in most of the terms that you can imagine. Okay. Probably even the most important for most of the people, money. They earn higher wages. However, from the firm perspective, it's important because their ideas are typically accepted and realized. Okay, so this is important. It's important to know who are brokers. In fact, this idea has been studied at the level of regions and countries, and it still works. Countries or regions that broker more other countries or regions are actually richer. Okay, so it's this idea is more general than just level of firms. Okay, and there is a book about that. If you're interested, you can just read the book of Robert. Okay, let me talk to you about another case, very simple thing. This is a real life case with network intervention. Okay, so this is a real life case performed by one of the largest consulting firm, McKinsey company. Okay, and they were asked by the world leading designer of manufacturer of office products in the US, okay, to restructure their firm because they had a problem of coordination across departments, and actually it led to customer complaints. Okay, so what they did? Well, first of all, what they decided, because they realized that the departments are too disconnected, they created office-free spaces. Okay, this doesn't work. Why? Well, there was this informal network, but the fact that people are now in office-free space doesn't change this underlying network. What you have to do is to do something with the network. People are already friends with some other people, and it's not going to change just because of now I have a space and I see the others. You have to simulate this more. Okay, so what they did was now, first of all, to elicit these networks. So they were able to observe this underlying informal hierarchy in the network. Okay, so this is what they do. So they now, instead of only opening the offices, what they did is actually they restructured the people, put in the open offices some concrete people, put away other people. Okay, so they redistributed the people so that they forced some people to interact. Okay, idea very simple. They looked at people that were important for projects, for different projects. They put them together, people from the same project. Okay, employees are now working on a high-end strategic project, actually were sitting on strategic positions in that. And there was a specific focus on brokers. Obviously, brokers were sitting on the right place. Result, this is just a network visualization of the result. Before, the network were actually very fractionalized, polarized. Okay, While after all this intervention, what happened? Well, high connectivity, much higher connectivity in the whole firm, much higher centrality, okay, much more cohesion and much small distances. So this is the result in network terminology. What was the result in other terms? Well, 50% increase in connectivity and communication. Customer reports improved a great deal. Now customers are actually very happy what happened. And the important thing from the perspective, higher profits. Okay. So this was an example of a network intervention. Okay, let me go very briefly through comparison across different organizations. Okay, so how the network within across firms determines how good firms do. Okay, I'll be brief. I'll probably skip some things here, but it's a very interesting example. Okay, let me talk about a property which is called small world property. Meaning, as I mentioned, firms typically have these densely connected departments. There is high local clustering and short distances because we have these shortcuts between the departments. We call it small world property. This is a typical feature of these firm networks. Okay, so there was a study made by Brian Utsi and Spiro, okay, who hypothesized, look, there will be optimal level of this small worldness. Okay, however, to have data on many companies is complicated. So what they did, they used Broadway musical. I don't know how familiar you are with Broadway musicals, but Broadway musical is typically created by 5 individuals. Okay, producer, composer, librettist, and so on, director. So they form a network of collaborators. And then different composers or different librettists work on different projects. This generates a network, something you have here on the left, on the bottom left. So this is a sort of a network where different people work on different projects. Okay, so this is a network where we have small departments interconnected somehow because some people work on different projects. Okay, and what they tested is whether having the teams too disconnected or too connected is bad. Why? Well, too disconnected means that there is no collaboration across, so there is no interchange of ideas across departments, if I phrase this way. While on the right, if it's too connection, there are no novel information. Everybody knows the same thing. So what I claim that the in between case where new ideas emerge in different departments and then they travel somehow in an optimal way is the ideal thing. What do they observe? That yes, this is the case. Okay, the financial success of the different Broadway musicals, okay, was correlated with this new worldness of the networks, and not only the financial success, also the artistic success. Okay, what I have on the left is actually the financial, okay, success or actually failure. This is the gray, and what I have on the right actually is the artistic success. So these are the reviews or artistic reviews. In both cases, there is an optimal level of this feature of the networks that maximizes the benefit and the artistic success of these projects. Okay, so this is a nice way how we can detour the problem that we don't have good data on different networks because firms don't want to share with different types of data. Okay, so let me stop here. I'm done. Let me just conclude very briefly. Well, we have these informal networks behind that. Okay, they look pretty much like a networks and they are important. Okay, they have different properties. Okay, and these properties determine how well firms do. Okay, they can lead to success or failure. Okay, so the important lecture from this talk, I would like to give is that simply, well, look, we can manipulate them. So let's do it. Let's do it well so that our firm improves and increases the profits, benefits, and so on and so on. So let me stop here. So,
yes, I am the show. Thank you very much, Jaro, for the effort to summarize all the knowledge.
You, and I apologize. I have too much information.
Please stop share screen if you can.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
So now you can
I know. This is a talk that we can here for hours because there are many data and knowledge and papers, scientific papers done about that. Hope our audience enjoyed this talk because there are many implications for organizations, and probably everybody is thinking about the informal networks in their heads, thinking about, okay, this is influential, this is not, these kind of things, but we need data to improve, our organizations. Jaru, thank you very much. We are going to ask you some questions. Please, our audience, put the question in the chat box if you have any. The first is, you didn't enter into it, but are job-related task, help, advice, and leisure-related, have lunch, talk to, relationship networks, typically different in organizations?
Well, so the answer is no. So there is a great overlap between these leisure-related or the professional things. Okay, naturally, the leisure-related leads to this professional, right? So I play tennis with John. Okay, he's in a different department, but then I call him, and vice versa. Yeah. I am in a department with Jack. Okay, we talk a lot, and then we start to play tennis. So there is a large overlap, and it's sometimes very complicated to distinguish, to separate these things. So
yes, probably
they are closely related.
Yeah, probably the main conclusion is we can treat them like isolated networks. We should work.
So we could
at the same time
operate with different networks, as I showed you before: advice, trust, lunch, hate, and then if you are enemies, and so on and so on. Yeah. And we want a global picture. We need a way how to put all things together. That's roughly the idea.
Yeah. Brilliant. The second question is, how many different individual centrality measures are there? Just curiosity. Many?
Probably thousands.
Oh my gosh.
Probably thousands. But if we would like to know about the important measures, we might talk about 10.
10.
Roughly okay.
10. You can name some of them?
I really mentioned the most important ones. Okay, so local one, okay, which is the connectivity. This is something we understand very well, right? So my friend is the popular guy. Okay, and then we have this global one. The important probably are this eigenvector centrality, because it really reflects everything in the networks, and that's why it's complicated. And I didn't want to enter into the technical details, but the idea is that I am influential if I'm friendly with influential people, but then they are influential, they are friends with influential people, and then everything counts. So this is the more complex. This is the Google one. But then we have this simpler one. I am central if I'm close to many people. So this is this closeness.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the third case is this brokerage, in-betweenness.
Exactly.
And I would say these three are the important in spirit, these three important global measures, which are easy to understand if we abstract from the mathematics.
Yeah, I was thinking about brokerage because betweenness is sometimes really critical in large organizations which have many departments.
If you think about it, all my real life examples were really referring to brokerage betweenness.
Yeah. Let's go with the next. Sharon McAldo, what tools can we use to map the relationships in our organizations? Great question, Sharon.
Well, I don't know exactly what Sharon means by tools. Probably she talks about a software. So if you give me the data about these bilateral relationships, so we ask 10 individuals who is friend with whom, you give it to me, I just put it into a software. The best software is R. So this is what people use the most. So
R statistical software.
This is a freeware. everybody can download it, and there is a package called iGraph, which is the best thing, which people mostly use. But
probably complicated for business people.
Exactly. There are network-specific softwares, and I admit I don't know them. But if you have a look, if you Google it out, I'm sure hundreds for free will come out.
Yeah. I would say BEHR for the Agnosis platform because we do networks. In fact, we share an article about networks analyzing HR community on Twitter. I invite all our agents to look at that in our blog. We have more questions. I think no. Jaro, what a pleasure. Very insightful.
Okay, the pleasure was mine. Thank you for organizing. Thank you for the audience for being with us.
Yeah, if you have questions after this talk, you can rewatch the talk in our YouTube channel and ask Jaromir questions by email or in his website. Thank you very much.